Hey everybody, welcome to our indoor tracking webinar. We'll give it a couple more seconds to allow the last number of people to trickle in, and we will go ahead and get started. We will have a question and answers period towards the end of the presentation. There is a questions box off to the left-hand side of the screen. I will be moderating today. My name is George. There's a couple of familiar names in the list. Pleasure to not see everybody, but see their names. All right, we'll give it just a couple more seconds and then we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce Adrian, who's going to be our presenter for the day, as well as David. He is a product manager for our indoor tracking solution.
Hi, everyone. I'm sure some of you know me. I'm sure some of you don't. My name's Adrian. I am a member of our success team here at ZenduIT, and I've been working with George and David for quite a while now. Sure, some of you may know me from interactions we've had, and those of you that I've never met before, well, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance today. As George mentioned, we do have David with us, who is our product manager and subject matter expert on the Trax Indoor tracking product. He's going to be talking to you today about some kind of interesting things here. So I'm just going to present the agenda. We're going to be looking at indoor tracking. We're going to be looking at what is the problem that we're trying to solve. What are the use cases and solution? And then we're going to take a little bit of a dive into the software and hardware surrounding the indoor tracking solution, so you can get a good overview about how it can benefit you and organizations that you may deal with. So having said that, let's turn it over to David. So David, please educate.
Hey everyone. So I'm a product manager at ZenduIT. I currently own the Trax Indoor tracking, and we're going to run through that today. So we're going to kind of start with the problem and why we've really created this solution. So if we can go another one ahead. So the first problem really is asset tracking. So being able to actually locate where your assets are, this becomes even more difficult at scale. So if you have, 100 assets in one location, it's really hard to pick out one and find one thing. Another one would be, just actually knowing its location within the building, especially when there's multiple assets in multiple locations within the same building. Another one would be, again, identifying a large number at once. We can go next. The second problem really is underutilization of assets. So a lot of the time assets will be bought and we have no real measure of how long they're actually being used. So this can be underutilization, essentially something sitting when it should be used, and instead of using that asset that we don't necessarily know where it is, we just buy another one. So this could be tools, this could be forklifts, this could be hospital beds, really any use case. We really need to see the utilization data of this, so to actually have a tag on an asset and know how much that's being used, or know if it's just sitting in a room, 24 hours of the day. Another one, lastly, would be an over allocation of assets. So if we're assigning assets to too many things at once, we can see that the asset's actually being used 100% of the time, and that could justify purchasing another asset. Next. The third problem really ties in with the utilization, and it's inefficient data gathering. So we just don't know how much assets are being used or how little they're being used if we don't have a tag that's actually tracking it. And further with that, there's asset tags and there's things that can measure different data such as temperature and humidity. So especially for use cases like cold chain, being able to understand the temperature and have a history of the temperature is very important. And then we can have reporting on that to know average temperatures. If there was ever a problem, we can get notifications, so on and so forth. We can go next. So tying into the use cases, the first use case, warehousing. So being able to monitor the assets that you use in your warehouse, such as forklifts and tools, is very important. If tools are constantly being moved around and you can't find them, or you want to understand how they're actually being used, you can put a beacon with those tools. Forklifts would be the same. So you can actually track through a history of where that forklift has been in the building. And maybe it's only living in one corner and it's not properly being utilized. Sensors can also go on the walls. If stock needs to be stored, that can be stored and monitored in a certain temperature. And then congregation of assets is a big one as well. This could be for employees, especially now with COVID-19. Basically, you can have a rule that if you have too many assets in one place or not enough assets in one place, you can get a notification. So imagine every person's wearing a lanyard. Only 6 people are allowed in a room. We have 7 in that room. We're going to get a rule that we're now breaking COVID-19 protocols. Next. So construction, same thing again. You can track tools, but now you can start tracking bigger and more expensive assets like generators, like trailers, things that are being stored and moving day in and day out. You can also do that with basically planning where that equipment is. So when you're moving on to a job site, you can plug readers in. You can have asset tags attached to your assets and understand how long they're on that site. That can help with billing and again with utilization. Next. So really there is endless possibilities with this. If you can think of any situation where you need to put a beacon onto something, it needs to be tracked to know its location, to know its utilization, to understand things like temperature, humidity, or light. There's also beacons that have panic buttons. So situations like nurses or lone man situations, you can have a panic button that will communicate as well. The roadmap is going into SIM tracking as well, so these can be put into vehicles and go on SIM. Right now they're on Wi-Fi, so they plug into the wall for indoor and connect to the Wi-Fi. And again, passenger counting, that's something with congregation. Same with people tracking. Next. So what does the software actually look like? So it begins basically by having a floor plan. So this floor plan comes in as a PNG or comes in as a JPEG. So these are usually made for your buildings. It can be a CAD and we can convert it to an image. It could also be, if you want to be up and running tomorrow and you don't have a CAD, it could be a drawing that is somewhat to scale, but CAD's the ideal setup. From there, you place readers and you place beacons. So the readers are placed on the map into the rooms that you plug them into. So basically what that means is that we would place readers in each side of the building. When a beacon comes into that room, it's going to come up where the reader was placed, and we know that it's in that room. For stationary beacons, these would be beacons that are placed on the wall. So for like temperature or humidity, there's also door sensors, so placed on a door to know if it's open or closed. Those would be placed on the map and read by the nearest reader. You can go next. So the outdoor view, there's 2 views. There's an outdoor view and there's an indoor view. The indoor view shows only the map and only the indoor tracking, and the outdoor view shows a thumbnail of the image on the map. So this works in line with our outdoor solutions. So if you have assets or vehicles that have our ZenduCam, or if you have different asset trackers, they can be seen in line with your indoor tracking view, and then you can navigate to the indoor view in a variety of ways. So you can click on an asset or search an asset, you can click on the floor, or you can click on the expand button seen in the top right. So this is the indoor view. So this is how it works when you have uploaded your image. It is displayed here. In the bottom right, we can see we have different floors. This could also be different areas. So if you have a very, very large warehouse, you can have multiple floor plans on one floor. It would just laid out and be called areas instead. So we have readers here. On the left-hand side, we have a sales side reader and a product room reader. So those are actually reading the assets there that are attached. So searching beacons is very easy, and what this does actually is that it will search all beacons across all locations and all floors. So if you don't know where something is, you just simply search the name of it. This could be named anything. This could be named, David's car. It could be named David's backpack, et cetera, et cetera. It will show you what floor it's on, and it will show you the room that it's in. View utilization of beacons. So this is what we discussed before, actually showing trips and showing where your assets have been. So you can do this similar to how it's already set up on our Trax platform. You get a history. So you get a history by day. Here you can see the trips that they made that day. So on Wednesday, it had 2 trips between the sales side and the product room. And you can see for the other days as well. Measurements for specific beacons. So these are our temperature beacons. How this works is that you can select the color of what you want to set if an alert goes off. So they're red right now because the temperature is too hot. But the way this works with our history is that you can see a history throughout the date. The date you can select in the top right, and you can see the history basically of the temperature going up and down. Again, it would be an exception if on a rule you set that in this room it can only be this cold, or in this room it can only be this hot. We'll cover rules in a second. So these are the notifications and rules that you can get right now. So what each of these pertains to is either a beacon or a reader. So the first one is temperature outside of a set range, like I was just mentioning. So if you have a temperature beacon, you'll get a notification if the temperature is too high or if the temperature is too low, and you define that in the rule. With a door sensor, you define it if the door is open or closed. A lot of warehouses, for different, especially in manufacturing as well, doors need to be closed. So you get a notification if that door is open, and you can get a notification if that door is open for a certain amount of time as well. So we can say that a door is only allowed to be open for 1 minute. If it's open longer than that, you're going to get a notification. Also, notifications, they can come to email or they can come to text, and they're also shown on the platform as well. The next one would be the assets leaving a particular area. So if we have something that is supposed to stay in a room, a particular set of tools, and it leaves that room, you can get a notification. The other way around as well, you can get a notification if something is coming into a new room. Another one would be if the asset hasn't been read in a certain amount of time, maybe it's left the area, or there's something wrong with the asset. And then next one would be asset has not moved in X amount of time. So this is your big utilization one. If you have a forklift that's supposed to be used day in and day out, and it hasn't moved in 6 hours, you can set a notification and look into why that forklift is not being moved. Next one would be a blacklist feature. So working the other way, if there's a specific something that shouldn't be in an area, the forklift shouldn't be in the lunchroom. Basically, if that goes in, you would get a notification, and hopefully not a broken wall as well. Last one would be that congregation rule. So too many assets or too few assets. And you can set that as well and define how many too few or too many is. So what does the hardware actually look like for these? So the first one would be the reader. So the reader is a standard wall plug. It plugs into the wall. The plug on the front is still usable as a normal plug for anything else. It's not affected, so you don't lose plug space. It connects to Wi-Fi, so we set it up on our end. It connects to your Wi-Fi. We would put in your Wi-Fi credentials, and then it uploads what it's reading to the cloud. So the beacons are the the asset tags or beacons that go onto the assets. They have a battery in them, and they are read by this reader that's plugged into the wall. It scans every second as well. So these are our different types of beacons that we're going to be doing for our beta testing. So left to right, we have our personal card. So this can be put on a lanyard. You can power it on and off, and it would be used for people tracking. So for things like nurses or in warehousing, your workers. The next one is a temperature and humidity beacon. So this gets put onto the wall, and then it will then measure temperature and humidity. Again, you can define what your limits are for that, and you can change your units as well. The next one would be our general purpose asset tag. So this would be the one used probably the most. It is very small. Is it about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch? And it can be put on really anything. It just has double-sided tape on the back, but it can be strapped on, it can be taped on, it can have a magnet put on if it's magnetic. There's multiple ways to do it. The next one would be a panic button beacon. So this works when that button there at the top is pressed. You would get an alert or notification that it's been pressed, and that can escalate higher as well. So I believe that is all. This is our question period now, where we can have an open discussion.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, David. So we do have a couple of questions here in the question box. The first question is, would each room need a reader, or is it based on radius?
Yes. So it depends on how specific you want to be and how detailed you want to be. The beacons usually display at a 50-meter range. So that's about 150 feet. So you could put readers that amount. The more accurate that you want to be, the more readers you want to have.
Thank you so much for that, David. I hope that answers your question. Another question that we had here is, just give me 1 second. Are these beacons certified for use in offshore oil fields, instructingly safe, etc.? Question mark.
I'm not sure about that specific use case, but they are worldwide certified, so I can check into it, but I would likely say yes.
Perfect. And I will follow up with David for you, Clive. Not a problem on that question there. I have another question here. Can this be embedded into a GeoTab database?
Yes.
Yes, it can. Thank you so much for that, David. There's another question here as well. Can the personal card have an RFID code as well for other uses?
Yes, absolutely. So we have ones that are BLE beacon with an RFID. So if you're looking, to scan in certain places, that can be combined. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, David. I hope that answers your question there. We have another question coming in as well. Do the beacons breadcrumb how much information between movements?
So in terms of breadcrumb, you would get a history of readers or rooms, if you name them, that it's been. So you get a report, and with that, basically, you can track. So let's say, we have 4 readers from this side of the factory to the other, or we have a reader at each station for something that's being manufactured. You would see the time that it entered that station, the time that it left that station, so obviously the time that it was there as well. And you would see that for each station, and then you would get a report of all of it, so you can download and compare that with how long it's actually supposed to be there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question there with regards to the breadcrumbs. Another question here: are the beacons compatible with Bluetooth BL? I'm assuming that's BLE IOX.
In terms of the GeoTab BLE IOX?
Yes.
Not yet, but that's something that can be done and can be integrated. There's also, there's hundreds of beacons that can be brought into our system. And if there's specific use cases for a specific beacon that you're thinking, that's definitely something that we can look into. There's beacons, for example, that can they can take measurements from something like battery from a forklift. And then that could still be read by a reader.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Are any of the units IP67 rated?
Yes. I cannot remember which one, but there is an IP67 beacon. Yes. Very tough.
No problem. And guys, you will receive a copy of the presentation as well. And as well, you can always reach out to your individual account manager to get any additional detailed information. There is another question here. Sorry. What is the range of the readers?
So in terms of reading, the range comes from the beacons, not the readers. So the reader, imagine that's just something that's listening, and imagine a beacon is something that's yelling. So depending on how loud it's yelling, depends on how far away it can hear it. So our main asset tracking beacon is 50 meters, but we have beacons that go up to 100 meters. So when you start putting walls in the way, it starts limiting that, but basically a reader per room in about a 25-meter circle is no problem.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And I hope that answers your question there, Bernie. Another question we have here, is there a min amount or a min or max amount of units that can be added to a single database?
So right now we're limiting ourselves at 500 beacons per reader. So that would be 500 beacons in one room. So there's no limit to the amount of readers that you can have. And then you would need it's not going to read more right now than 500 per reader.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, David. We have another question here as well. Can you provide some pics of the tags? So if we can provide some pictures of the tags against the background with a pen, etc., to get a better understanding of their sizes.
Yes, we can do that when we send it out, but the asset tags are very small. They're about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. So like 1/2 inch diameter of a circle.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. And yes, we can send a couple of pictures showcasing the size. Is there a life cycle on the beacons?
Yes, so the battery life of beacons is about 1.5 years. They operate, our main ones, on a standard coin 2035 coin battery. So that can be replaced pretty easily. So they don't have to be thrown out at any point.
Perfect. Sorry, there's a couple more questions here. Pricing, question mark. What we can do is we can send pricing after the after the presentation. Sorry, David, we have a couple more questions here. What is we answered this. What is the battery life of the beacons generally? David, if you just want to quickly answer that one more time.
Yeah, so they're about 1.5 years to 2.5 years, depending on which beacon tag you get, and they have replaceable batteries. The temperature one actually runs on AAA batteries. That's the lower end. They are lithium, so it's about 1 year to 1.5 years, but again, it's simple to replace the AAA batteries.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. In a warehouse environment where you want to track forklifts, so in a warehouse environment that you want to track forklifts, do you protect from people unplugging the reader? So is there a notification that can be triggered, for example, towards unauthorized device removal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So basically right now for readers, we do have a notification that can be set up for it was last read within X amount of time. So if your reader stops communicating they do communicate every second. So that can be, within 10 seconds, within 30 seconds, you can get a notification that that's been unplugged. We don't have any actual physical, way to stop that right now. It just plugs into the wall, so someone could unplug it. But we are looking into getting that, some sort of harness that can connect to the wall as well. That would make it much more difficult to unplug, or even if it gets knocked. I mean, it's a pretty tight seal, but it's a possibility.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, David. And Ricky, if we wanted to connect offline on a more specific, we can definitely answer some specific questions with regards to that. David, there's a couple more questions here. Sorry. Any idea on cost for the hardware / receivers? Yes, we will be sending a price list after the presentation. A couple more questions here. Can we read the power level on the battery in the beacon to create low battery alerts? So is there an ability to trigger a low battery alert?
Yeah, great question. Currently there is not, but it is something we are looking into. We can bring in the battery percentage. So it's something that we could definitely do. Yes. Currently no, but something on the roadmap, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for that. A couple more questions here. Sorry. How are the units in extreme temp / humidity?
So every beacon has a different rating. We can send that out after. The stronger ones have huge ranges, like we're talking above 100 degrees, below -50 Celsius. Most of them are within a range of about -40 to +60, again, Celsius.
Got it. Thanks so much for that. So uncomfortable for us humans.
Yeah.
I have another question here. Will this be on the same platform as our ZenduCam, which a lot of our resellers are very fond of?
Yes. So that slide mentioning that it goes in line with your outdoor view, So you can quickly toggle between an indoor tracking view and your outdoor view. Your outdoor view would have all of your asset trackers, all of your ZenduCam, and then your indoor view would have all of your indoor assets and indoor tracking.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, David. Thanks so much for the question there. Give me another second here. Like the temperature, are there any sensors for flooding?
That's a good question. So that's not something that we have currently evaluated, but I am sure there is a beacon that would be able to do that. And if there's a beacon that can do it, we can bring it in.
Perfect. And again, Clive, we'll connect with you on more individual conversations after the presentation. Can a beacon conduct measurements, example, engine hours?
That basically is the same question as before in the sense of, are we able to bring in something if the beacon can do it as attachment? Yes, it should be able to. Another way to do that is that there is accelerometer beacons. So if you're putting it on something like a forklift and we are counting engine hours as all the time that it's moving, we can do it that way as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, David. If we used a metal strap to secure the reader, would it affect the range?
It should not. The reader, no.
Yeah.
If it's completely covering it, yes. But if it's just a strap over it, it shouldn't be a problem.
Perfect. I hope that answers your question there, Ricky. How soon can we order? Great question. I would say let us send you the presentation, and Bernie, someone will reach out to you directly. And I think we have a couple more questions still pouring in. Can you track packages for delivery / whereabouts?
Can we elaborate on that use case maybe a little?
Yes, Andreas, if you wanted to just elaborate a little more. I'm assuming, for example, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if we can track packages within a specific warehouse as it's been delivered, if I have the understanding correctly. Yes, correct.
Sorry, can you reword that?
Yeah, so if we can track packages as they come into a warehouse location, so for example, a package comes in that's been delivered, we slap on a tag. Yes, to answer your question in short, Andreas, yes, if it has a tag and it's in a room with a reader, yes, you'd be able to track it on the portal itself, on the platform.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having a stock room or similar.
Exactly. Think of, Andreas, if you can think of, for example, a skid, you slap a tag on a skid, you'll see where the skid is relative to the room, or in the room, sorry. There is a couple more questions here. How soon can we order? Is the supply availability going to be there, or is there a supply chain concern? I'm assuming with regards to stock availability.
Right now, we're stocking out about 4 weeks. So we want to be modest with that, but it's about 4 weeks. In terms of POCing, we are looking to do some testing and POCing. You would get 2 readers and beacons of your choice. Those could be, shipped tomorrow.
Perfect. Does that answer your question there? If so, again, Tim, we will have somebody connect with you immediately after the presentation to discuss some opportunities that you may have. Let me just make sure we answered all of these questions. I have a question that's more so a compliment for you, David. How did the presenter get so smart?
No comment.
Thank you so much for that, guys. It means a lot. I think we have answered all the questions. If any of the attendees have any other questions to ask David or myself, please feel free to pop it in. If not, then thank you everybody for joining. Oh, never mind. If you compliment the presenter, will you get a discount? That is something we cannot approve on our end.
Live, my answer is no.
There you go. We have the answer.
If you compliment me, I might be able to help you out, but not the presenter.
Sorry, we were strong-armed there. It doesn't look like any more questions are, oh, sorry, there is another comment here. Please send pricing ASAP, as well as if orders are being taken now and delivery time. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Ricky. We will have somebody contact you immediately after this presentation. I'll just give it another couple seconds here to see if anything else comes in. I don't think we are seeing any additional questions. That being said, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you, all of our attendees. I know it's been quite a whirlwind of a session. Thanks so much for joining us. We will be sending the presentation as well as the individuals that have requested pricing. Somebody will be in contact with you immediately after this presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.